to Trust the Scoop with your host, Philip Dukes, a.k.a. Dukes the Scoop.
Yo, welcome to the latest edition of Trust the Scoop, and it is game week. I am super excited. Matter of fact, I'm so excited, I'm going to turn the lights on today. Yes, sir. Game week. War Eagle. Let's get it. Auburn versus Kentucky. I am super excited. Big week this week. Amarius Mims and Auburn. Can't believe it, right? Okay. Jalen Simpson starting that corner. Hello, right? And I'm going to answer your questions off of Twitter. Dukestradamus, the first one. So before we get started, follow me on Instagram at Dukes the Scoop. Follow me on Twitter at Dukes the Scoop. Follow me on Facebook. Send me a friend request because I will be your friend on Facebook. Philip Dukes. All right? Cool. All right, but before we do any of that, man, you know I always like to start with like a funny story. So let me tell you about the stand. I just left Down South Football Podcast. Shout out to those guys, man, doing a really good job. What up, Renard, Tuck, my boy D, everybody, right? So the funniest thing that has happened since I started doing this was that I started a social media beef between me and the guys from Rivals, right? It's not, now trust me, disclaimer here, really not a beef, but it was funny. You know what was funny? That I made Jeffrey Lee say, keep that same energy. The best part of this whole thing of me doing this was I got on Twitter and I got that guy to tell me to keep that same energy. That was hilarious to me. Now, I like Jeffrey Lee. You know why? Because this is what happened, right? I ain't never really told this story like for real. I'm gonna tell it though. All right. So look. So I'm coming out with all this type of insider info, and people are trying to figure out like, is this guy for real or whatever? So I go to the Rivals board. Rivals board, they talk trash about me, but it's kind of like in jest a little bit. Like, they say whatever they want to say on that board, right? But I came up on the 24/7 board. There's kind of a couple of people skeptical about me then too. But when the Rivals, they were just like, okay, cool, but. Tate and Jeffrey Lee, they weren't never like really disrespectful now, right? So I'm talking to J-Boy. And J-Boy's like, hey, Dukes, man, I think they talking mess about us and on a podcast. And me, I'm like, this light bulb go off just like that, like, ding. Now, what better way to get acknowledged than to have somebody acknowledge me? All right, cool. Marketing, right? All right, so I'm like this, thinking in my head. I'm like, I don't like that anyway. So I'm like, hey, man. So I get on Twitter. I'm like, hey, man, I heard y'all was talking mess about me. Keep that same energy when you see me, right? So I'm just waiting. I'm like, man, what they going to say? I know they see it because people going to start retweeting. Now, I apologize because I ain't realized that some people I ain't know that there were people who really like me as a person just because I'm, like, you know how I interact. So I'm like, hey, man, and so some people was like, oh, Rivals got a problem with Dukes, but I got a problem with Rivals. F them, whoop the whoop. And so I told all them, like, nah, chill, it ain't like that. Nah, chill, right? So I'm waiting on a response. Boom, at Dukes the Scoop. Jeffrey, MF, and Lee. Keep that same energy when you apologize, because I ain't say nothing about you. Ooh, he killed it. So I go on the board. I talk to Jeffrey Lee. I'm like, hey, man, look. It ain't even like that, man. I heard I got some bad info. My bad, right? Okay, cool. But, so I respect Jeff Lee. You know why? Because there was a time that, before, like, back in the day, like, before I even thought about being any of this, I think he was, like, the head of one of them sites or something like that, and he always had the info, so much respect. But what I liked about it most was, after we had our little spat, man, Jeffrey Lee sent me a message. I sent him a message. It was just like, hey, man, respect what you do. I ain't saying you this. I ain't saying you that. I ain't say that. And I told him, I like, look, I'm going to give you a public apology because I was wrong. And I believe that you didn't say nothing about me. Cool, right? The funniest part is Jay Tate, right? Jay Tate come back. He's like, I want an apology too. I'm like, Blaster, who you talking to? But this is me and Jeff Lee thing. That's my cousin at this point. Jeff Lee, if you ever in the call me, bro. For real. But here's a funny story. Like, I just could not believe that I got this guy to keep that same energy on Twitter. But it's cool though. Now we pieced it out, man. So, man, shout out to them guys over there, man. They do a great job. Shout out even Jeffrey Tate. Even Jay Tate, man. Jay Tate, we might arm wrestle or something, man. You know what I'm saying? I think I'll win. But nah, I don't know. He might beat me. I don't know. But hopefully, man, we'll hook that up. But all in jest, all in fun. You know what I mean? But now I just want to talk about the history of the beef with Rivals. It really wasn't a beef. Like, you know, I even saw Drunk Aubrey say something like, when journalists beef is like a nerd fight. Boy, it ain't a bit of nerd in me. But all right. But man, let's get into it. Amarius Mims was in Auburn last weekend. I got the call. My source hits me on Sunday. I couldn't confirm it until Monday. It said it was 3 guys. And my buddy hits me. And I'm like, man, let me see. Shh. And, you know, J-Boy's my buddy, right? He knew. And I'm going to tell y'all, a lot of people don't respect J-Boy as an insider, but J-Boy's network is so vast, like, of people. Like, in Auburn, he's been around Auburn his whole life, so he's going to get stuff that some people may not get that I'm not going to get. Like, you know what I'm saying? So when he hit me with it, he could have got that from the guy working at the hotel where he stayed in, but he had it. And I didn't see it anywhere before he did, so shout out to J-Boy for doing good work on that. So, Amarius Mims was in Auburn. Now, there's a lot that goes along with that, right? But what I will say is this. I still feel like Georgia is in the lead. I still feel like Tennessee is 2. I feel like Auburn and Alabama are still in the mix, but Auburn may be closer to 3, right? Auburn has made some headway with the mom from what I'm hearing, right? Okay, cool. All right, past that. Amarius Mims really likes Auburn itself. He likes Auburn. It's not about anything else but liking Auburn and knowing that he could probably play pretty early if he came to Auburn. I think that where we are in our class, and I say this so much, just remember this. This 21 class, it's not as deep as some people would like for it to be. So let's just talk about so I see a lot of guys saying, okay, well, we're not getting Mims. Mims is going to Georgia, so we should just go get Ravion Crum. Ravion Crum committed to North Texas today, right? Like, nothing against him, and I hope he has a hell of a career, and I don't think that he ends up at North Texas. I think that a Power 5 school will offer him because he's a pretty good ball player, great size, right? But Auburn didn't pull the trigger on that just because they felt a certain kind of way. They still stuck to their board. And I have to commend Auburn for sticking to their board. And another thing that we have to realize is this is a free year. So there are guys on the offensive line that are going to play this year that may be seniors that may choose to come back to school, and you get another year. That bridges the gap between the 2020 class, which is one of those classes that, you know, had a lot of generational talent in it, and the 2022 class. So you can afford to kind of, you know, be picky and choosy this year because you don't have to hit that home run this year because you know that the 22 class is probably one of the best classes in the last 10 years across the board. And anybody who is in the know knows that the 2022 class is loaded at quarterback, a bunch of quarterbacks, running back, a bunch of running backs, wide receivers is loaded. The offensive linemen, we're talking about and I'm just talking on the Southeast, but there are linebackers let's not even go into linebackers. The DBs, the 22 and 23 class, absolutely loaded. So it's one of those classes that where a guy who may have been a 4 or a 5-star in the 2020 class, in the 2021 class, may not be as highly ranked next year. And not just to talk about where he's ranked or his projections are, but when you look at the talent around him, you can kind of look at either one and say, dang, if this guy's a 5-star, how is this guy a 5-star when this guy has the size and the film and the production, but this guy just has one of the two? And the 21 class, you got a whole lot of projects across the board. There's a whole lot of size speed guys, but guys who don't really fill the tape up. And there are guys that have the tape that aren't filling that aren't going to be those combine warriors. And as I always say, like 24/7 always says, that they base their projections off of NFL projections and where you're going to be when it comes time to go to the NFL. And I can't say that enough. And I want everybody to understand that there's so much development that happens between being 17 and 21 when it's time for you to go to the NFL. That is that's really a tough position to be in, and the guys the Rivals, the 24/7s, ESPN, they do a really good job of trying to project something 3 or 4 years down the road. It is as inexact of a science as there is. But that's the world we live in right now. So I said all that to say we're still in on Mims, and Auburn isn't just going to take anybody. Now, the move, let's not move on yet. Now, looking at what we got going on the offensive line, right? So Brandon Marcello a few weeks ago says, I'm not as sure that the offensive line at Auburn is, well, they're not that good, whatever. He said the worst of the Malzahn era. That could be true, right? So when I went back and I fact checked, I've been doing this for 2 weeks, just trying to figure out, get anything I can on it. What I do know is that I feel like some of the performance of the offensive line and seeing what we have may have affected some of the recruiting that we're doing, right? So you're going to see more of the emphasis on some of these guys that can come in and play right away at the high school ranks, because we may have missed on some guys that can come in and play right away on some in the previous class. Let's say that. So I'm not going to call any names, but there were some guys that we thought would have came in and been, a little further along than what they are, and they aren't. They're kind of more developmental, even though they came from somewhere else. And I want you guys to read between the lines. So, but yeah, the fact that we may not have gotten what we expected with some of these recruits on the offensive line may be influencing some of our recruitment strategy and the tactics that we're using. And I would say that going hard or home on Amarius Mims is something that I'm excited to see. I've always said that. I thought that we shouldn't give up. Even when I got the information that said, hey, I think we're out of it. I think that Auburn's out of it. They never stop. So if they listen to me and they listen to you, and if they listen to anybody else who says we should just stop recruiting Amarius Mims, who are you going to recruit? Like, who's after him? Like, just go find me somebody else that we can get instead of Amarius Mims that's going to help you next year. If you don't see those type of guys, then why? There's no sense in it, especially when you got a dead year this year. Man, take who you want to take. So shout out to Coach Big Nail, shout out to Coach Steele, shout out to T. Will, shout out to everybody on that, Cody, shout out to everybody on that Auburn staff who's sticking to their board and getting guys that they know can come in and help us. All right? Okay, so let's get into Dukestradamus. So on Twitter last night, I said, you know what? I want to go through and answer questions from guys on Twitter, right? And just, let's just do it this way. Let's formulate a show around what people really want to hear and answers that they want to know and get my perspective and my opinion on. All right, so we will start with who's the first guy? Connor Morgan. Connor Blade. Hey, follow Connor. Connor Blade 08 on Twitter. Connor Blade asked me, who's your breakout underclassman D lineman for the year? I'm going to have to say Zacchaeus Walker. I think that given the opportunity, he could play inside and out. He's practiced at both positions. He's on the depth chart listed behind Truesdale, I believe. I know he's listed at D tackle, came in as somebody who could play that strong side defensive end. And they said when he got here, they said somebody who kind of reminds you of a Marlon Davidson. So I think that he's one of those guys who's going to play a whole lot. I think that he's going to play at multiple positions on the D line. And if I had to say my underclassman on the D line, it's going to be Zacchaeus Walker. Real life, Zion Hill 1. What's up, Zion Hill 1? In real life, what's the timeline on Harold Joyner to transfer? I don't think he'll transfer. What I think about what he's referencing is Harold Joyner not being on the depth chart. Harold Joyner is kind of going to be like that Swiss Army knife for us. So I know that he's been to multiple meetings. He's been in multiple meeting rooms. He's been in the running back room and he's been in the tight end room, and they kind of flex the H-back around a little bit. So I think that in this offense, you're going to see more of Harold Joyner than you may have expected to see. He's a phenomenal athlete with that size and his ability to catch. He was sold on the fact that he would be used like a Charles Clay, and Charles Clay, when at Tulsa, when Gus had him, he used him everywhere. So now, he was the best athlete on the field at all times back then. A lot of times, he was the best athlete on the field, so he had to be utilized. Harold Joyner may not be the best athlete on the field, but his skill set is so unique at that size that Auburn is looking for ways to kind of utilize him. I think Gus came out and said that, hey, he may not, don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if Gus said it or not. I've been things have been kind of crazy lately. But I do know for a fact that Auburn is looking to use him in a multitude of ways that he's almost like, list him as a weapon. If there was a weapon on the depth chart, it would be Harold Joyner. Auburn Access asked me about Mims. I already answered your question, big dog. All right, let's go. Eli Gravity. Eli, what's up, Eli? Eli Gravity says, what we winning Saturday by? How much we winning by? Look, it may be the skin of our teeth. All right, we don't know what we have yet. So I've talked to some people in the know, and offensive line is a bit of a concern. I mean, it's not. I wanted to come out and say Marcelo was wrong, but I'm not. Offensive line is a bit of a concern, but what I have heard is that in order to kind of protect the offensive line and make sure that the offensive line is put in a position to be successful, you're going to see more of you're going to see some quick hitting stuff. You're going to see some slants, some drags. You're going to see more of 3-step drops to get rid of the ball so you're not protecting all day, and to kind of throw the defense off where they can't just pin their ears back and pass rush. So I think you'll see a good selection of run pass in order to protect the offensive line, and so, to protect the offensive line, to protect the quarterback, if that makes sense. So definitely I think that we beat Kentucky. Touchdown, maybe. I can see that. It could be a blowout. First game of the year is kind of hard to see, so nobody's really even seen the scrimmage. I mean, people can say what they're hearing, but that's all they're getting. The only people who know what's really going on with Auburn right now are the guys who are over at the complex, period. Like, they can, and even then, that's opinion based. We haven't seen them, so when they line up and they put it on TV and ESPN or whatever covers it, they don't know who they have. They don't know who's going to perform when the lights come on. They have no idea, and I think that was part of the reason that they had practice under the lights last week, just so people could get a feel about playing in getting that big stadium feel, but with so many underclassmen that are going to have to own a 2D depth chart, which I'm 1,000% excited about, because not just for this year, but even leading into next year, to get so much experience. And we're going to lose some guys this year, but we don't have to lose all those guys. Some guys can opt back in to play next year just because they're playing in such a crazy season. So I'm super excited about that. And just to answer your question, Eli, I think that we'll win by 7. A-Hawk, A-Hack, H-A-A-K, Hawk, maybe? A-A-H Law. What's up? Appreciate it. It's a Kalen Newton Wildcat. I would expect that there's a package for Kalen Newton. I'm not sure when, but I know they're going to get the ball in his hands in a multitude of ways. They say he's a ball player, so definitely expect to see him in a Wildcat. I think that you'll see Harold Joyner in a Wildcat. Pegues maybe down the line a little bit, but definitely Joyner. Newton is a guy that I can see in a Wildcat, and you may see in a funky formation earlier in the season. I think so. But that's my opinion. Off some of the things that I've heard, they're just saying he's such a natural ball carrier when he gets the ball in his hands that it's going to be hard to not scheme him in the game plan. And I see Wildcat as being probably I think that's probably the place that he could be most dangerous. So I would expect to see him in the Wildcat, and also to see Harold Joyner in the Wildcat. Breakout freshman, Ladarius Tennyson. I think Ladarius Tennyson plays a lot this year. I think that what he'll be able to do in the run game, as far as his tackling ability, and to be able to support in some of the heavier sets when to give Tut a breather, like his Christian Tut, who's going to play that star role. He's going to be doing a lot on special teams, returning. I think sometimes he could have used a breather. I think that Tennyson being able to come in and spell him, use him around the defense, maybe play him at free or play him at strong, wherever he needs to be used. I think he's going to be one of those guys that kind of reminds me of Robinson Therese, the other Cadillac, and I think he's a guy that could have a breakout season. So definitely looking forward to seeing Ladarius Tennyson play. Corey Ivy, AK all the way. What you doing for the game? Man, I'm going to watch it with my son, man. I can't wait. Me and Cam going to sit right in here, turn on the big screen. And he's so excited about it. That's all he's been talking about. So, man, me and Cam going to watch the game. Chase, Auburn fan, 0107 said, I thought you were supposed to have an episode out tonight. Thanks a lot, Chase. Thanks a lot. All right, letting everybody know I was inconsistent this week. Dreamville fan, number 1. Big Pat, 03. What's up, Pat? Wooden and Simpson starts. Please explain. All right, so let's get into the Jalen Simpson thing, right? So Jalen Simpson, Nehemiah Pritchett, and Marco Damio will all play, right? From what I'm hearing, Simpson isn't head and shoulders above those guys. He just has performed well enough to be the 1A to go out first, right? So you're going to see these guys spell each other. They say Matthew Hill had a hell of a camp for him to be so on the other side of McCreary. So you're going to see these guys on the field at the same time a lot of times. Sometimes you will. And you want to build that depth. So being able to have two other guys that could have started. And I heard this today that Marco Damio is an NFL guy. And he may not be ready for Kentucky, but by Georgia, he could be the guy who run out first. Let's say Simpson has a less than stellar game, you may see Pritchett out there first. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of rotating at that corner spot. You're going to see a lot of guys play. I think Simpson had a hell of a camp to skip over some of these guys and to get the start. Super proud of him. But I don't think that says a whole lot about Damio and Pritchett playing bad. I think it just says how well Simpson performed. And if anything else, what I did hear about Simpson was that he was consistent. So he may not have made some of the wild plays that you may have got from a Damio or Pritchett, but more namely Damio. But what he's going to give you is that consistency on a consistent basis, where tackle the man in front of you. Make the smart read, make the smart play. And they say he's such a good, smart, instinctive player that it boded well for him. So super proud of that kid, and I hope he balls out against Kentucky. Jan Foster, J-Go 2409. Will we have more than one 1,000-yard running back this year? I seriously doubt that we'll have more than one, just because we only play about 10 games. Now, there is a way for us to get 13 games, so we can get 10, win the SEC championship, and win 2 in the playoff. Now, if we get there, I can see us having 2 1,000-yard running backs. So if we win the Natty, we'll have 2. That's my prediction. Dukestradamus. We win the Natty, we'll have 2 1,000-yard running backs. Okay, Tyler Yoakum, he talked about Jalen Simpson, which I kind of talked about how he won the job in camp. But yeah, so that's that. So that's our first session of Dukestradamus. So next week I'm gonna do the same thing. Ask me your questions, and what I'll do is I'll take your questions. Whatever I can ask or whatever I can find out from some of the guys that have the information, I'll get it to you as soon as possible. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the recruits that everybody's talking about. The same recruits. You got Kool-Aid, you got Smile Monday. One guy I want to talk about is Trevin Wallace. Trevin Wallace is probably having the best season of a linebacker in Georgia right now. Like, Trevin Wallace is absolutely killing it. Jessel, he's balling. So now Georgia's got involved. I hear the South Carolina is heavily involved. I heard there are multiple schools taking looks at him. I seriously doubt he goes to Boston College. And he's a guy that a side speed guy, 6'2", 220, and man, he's balling right now. That's a guy to watch out for with Auburn. Smile Monday, he's been playing pretty good. So he's having kind of like a lingering knee injury that is kind of having him playing a step slow. I think people are recognizing that, but are also recognizing what he's doing, playing for his team. Even being injured with everything he has on the line, he still wants to go out there. He had multiple chances to transfer. I heard he could have went to IMG Academy. I heard he could have went to Pace Academy, but he chose to stay with Paulding County. So a lot of respect for Smile Monday, and hope he gets over that injury and shows guys who he is as a 100% athlete. Still hearing that Georgia's heavily involved, but Auburn is right there, and I think that's one that just comes down to signing day. Kool-Aid's balling. Looking really, really good with the ball in his hands. I'm ready to see him play basketball because I saw him hit a DB with a Euro step the other day. So, hey, man, Kool-Aid, man, shout out to you, man. You're doing an excellent job. He's a guy that I think that ends up in Auburn. I actually reached out to some of his folks, so hopefully we get him onto Trust the Scoop soon. But definitely a guy I think ends up in Auburn. Won't count out LSU, but if it was my choice, I would say Auburn, LSU right now. Bama in third for Kool-Aid. Scooby's a guy that I think that we end up getting. Tay, who's really been killing that recruitment for Scooby. He's been saying that he feels like Scooby will be coming. I talked to some other guys, and they also feel the same way. I think if it's another team that's involved, it's going to be is going to be Florida. I know Georgia's sniffing around a little bit, but I was really interested to see how they would deploy him in their defense. So I think that it's based on the fit, I think it's more of an Auburn and Florida battle for Scoop B. Now, this is the time of Trust the Scoop, where I'm going to give out the answer for my next giveaway, right? So if you're watching still, we're at 25 minutes and you're still watching, you're going to get the answer for the next giveaway. The answer for my next giveaway is lights on. Lights on is the answer for my next giveaway. All right. Hey, it's been a pleasure. If you got anything else you want to talk about, hit me on Twitter. We'll get to it, man. Love y'all to death. As always, Philip says, thanks is my cash app. Trust the Scoop is gone.